Welcome to Rubber Duck Engineering. Tonight we're going to talk about terrain generation using a noise function for our 2D roguelike open world thing that we've been writing in Flutter. Hi, Dr. Barth.
Hey, Eric, how's it going?
It's, I/O week, so all sorts of excitement happening in the Flutter world, which, keeps me busy.
Yeah, you seem
Flutter
really
and
busy
Dart
this
world.
week.
What'd you say?
You seem really busy this week. I imagine there's a lot going on behind the scenes to make all those announcements happen.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if I'm doing my job right, the stress for me is all done weeks or months in advance. But there's still a lot of Showtime stuff that is causing stress for other people, and I'm there to support and make sure things go off well. But no, it just was mostly exciting. It's just lots of people are in town. Even though I/O was like a smaller, like in-person thing this year, there still were lots of of my colleagues who flew in. Just nice to see people, and I don't know. I've been hiding in my cave for years now, literally years, and it's just nice to get out and yeah, talk to people. So, but yeah, we should bring people up to speed because once again, a lot happened in the Easy Bake Oven.
Yes, I think at the end of the last episode, we had not quite gotten the open world dynamics working in the game, and I think should we like boot it up and show people where we are? So we managed. We weren't sure at the end of the last episode whether it was like a 5-minute fix or more than that to get to them working, and it took about an hour actually. So there was some more things we had to do.
Yeah, there's a lot that's changed, right? So first of all, you can't tell, but this is now open world in that like you can wander around, and it like will load up extra chunks for you and stuff.
Yeah, so this world goes on literally forever, or I mean, until you run out of memory.
We added like you can see there's animations, like that did not exist when we last left our heroes.
There's aggro, so like if you get close enough to that enemy, the enemy will chase you as you go.
We added hit points to enemies and then removed it.
Turns out the game gets hard. We give the enemies 2 hit points, and that means they each get to hit you before they go away. It was quite a lot.
Yeah, it just makes enemies very taxing because currently enemies spawn per room because there's still like a concept of chunks in the game, even though it's opaque to you. But like, you just like you got aggro now. Oh my god,
aggroed on you. They're gonna get you. Oh, the sparkle heart! Get the sparkle heart.
Sparkle heart. Yeah, so there's still like that's a little odd. There's other things like so you built this fancy implicit animation system that animates between frames, but it also means that like you can get a little behind in the animation. I love when you turn corners quickly because in other games it goes first left and then up. In ours, it's just it's like, oh well, last time you were here and now you're here.
I modeled the animation system off of like Flutter's core animation system, so it's all built with one giant linear interpolation. We render the beginning frame and then the after frame, and then we linearly interpolate between them to create all the animations. And then if like an enemy didn't exist in the destination frame, then there's like a death animation that it goes through to like get itself off screen. But it also accepts inputs as fast as you give them, which means it'll wherever it is interpolating between frame A and B. If you then get frame C, it'll then interpolate between the midpoint or whatever it is between A and B and C. And so then you can get up these strange diagonal animations. It's clearly not the right way of doing game animations, but it was a quick hack to get a lot of animations into the game.
Did we remove the light bulbs?
No, they're there. Just sometimes it takes a long time to find them.
So in playtesting, we found that our playtesters discovered that basically the only thing you can permanently change about your character is your vision radius. And so the only objective they've found in the game so far is to change the vision radius as large as they can.
And they got really proud when they got the vision radius.
I died.
Oh, you can actually die now. That's another thing.
Oh, yeah.
You can actually get a vision radius that is larger than the entire screen. And so then they determined that when the playtesters, of course, being our kids, determined that when they had gotten that much vision radius, that means they had won the game. And it was now over.
They're professional game players.
They really are.
Professional.
Oh, you should try picking up a block. You can pick up a block.
Oh,
Too.
that's right. Yeah, we added picking up a block. See, you can like hold it now.
It's like a mutable world. I think like the main thing the game is lacking, in my opinion, is a sort of intent. Like what is the objective, or like what is the aesthetic or purpose of this game? Like currently the aesthetic is like you're a bug walking around on like a dirt hill or something, but it's not clear like what you're doing in life. Like why are you here? What is the purpose of this?
Drops are so good, like the fact that the enemies can do drops. Anyway, so I think we have like a good foundation, and we brainstormed that one of the things we could do is we could just like spam out a whole bunch of weapons and enemies, and because there's all sorts of things we could add. But I think we instead wanted to play with with terrain generation, because we get to play with noise, which is something that I've at least played with a little bit in Unity. I feel like we played with a little bit once before on this show.
Probably. We've done almost 100 episodes by now, so I'm sure we played with it at some point. But yeah, that's the other thing, is if you just keep walking in this infinite world, it's all this like gray or brown dirt hill. So I think it'd be cool if you ended up in you ended up in a forest, or you ended up like maybe there was a lake you could run into, or like something like that.
Great. So yeah, so my limited understanding from watching some YouTubes on this some many months ago, and again, if anyone's watching and actually knows how this works in games, you can tell me that I'm completely wrong. But my limited understanding is that these noise functions exist, which basically take a single seed and turn it into a 2D plane of random values, or of continuously related values.
So like maybe we'd have one for the water table, and then if the water table gets too high, that means it's an ocean, and if it gets too low, it means it's a desert or something like that.
And then similarly, you can also get obviously 3D noise from these same algorithms as well. But it allows you to have a single seed, and then these chunks basically then become offsets into that plane of randomness. You then have one random value basically that you're generating the entire world from. And then it also has this property of continuous connectivity, right? So it's all these, they're not, but like you could imagine them as like overlapping sine waves or whatever. So it makes it so that it's not just jumping around like a random number generation.
So you don't go like immediately from like desert to ocean. You would go through like temperate forest.
Correct.
I don't know, savanna to temperate forest to ocean or something.
And so one thing that I was thinking that we could try is use the noise. So Minecraft has this like concept of biomes, which Minecraft is like a formative thing for me in this world. Let me actually get rid of this so I can look at you more directly. But Minecraft has this concept of biomes, and I think that sort of the placement of biomes and what biomes are adjacent to each other does not necessarily need to be the same way as like the noise plane that you might use within a biome to have variation. Like you
so
can imagine,
like noise at two different scales, right? One that was selecting the biome and one that was selecting features within the biome. Is that what you're?
Well, and often actually in the videos that I've watched, that it's common not to just take a single noise, but take multiple noise planes, and I don't know if noise plane is the correct term, but that's what I'm using, and like stack them on each other.
Okay, so should we like what is my question always when I embark on some new thing?
The MVP?
Like yeah, what is the dumbest version of that?
Yeah, so I think a dumb version that you alluded to before is that we could have we may need a second block color to start with, but we could have 3 block states, right? You're either if you're so again this noise plane, again I don't know if that's the right term, but I'm going to use it. This noise plane goes from -1 probably to 1. Or certainly we could scale it to something like that, -1 to 1, and so like something nearish to 0, we just trade it as normal passable. Something below -0.5 or something, we treat as blue water, and something and not pick upable, perhaps we do, and then something above 0.5 we treat as, and that I think would be like a start.
Oh, let's try that. That sounds entirely sensible.
The other thing that will do is it will make it does a whole bunch of things. But again, moving to a world in which you're generating off of noise where you have a single seed of random, as opposed to right now, the way that we deal with the world is that we generate each cell when we first fetch it.
Right.
Another thing that we'll do is it'll also cause contiguous regions, right? It'll cause lakes, to appear and hills to appear.
I think we should try it and see what it does. Like, I'm a big learn by trying.
So there is
my learning mode.
Amen. I agree. So there is a Dart package that somebody already did. Clearly, somebody also already, tried to write some games in Dart, which is this set of noise ports. Actually, from this software engineer, I looked them up. They're an engineer on at the game company that made No Man's Sky. Is that the one?
Oh, wow.
Like the Infinite Planets or whatever.
Yeah.
Which makes sense that they would be into noise. And so they have, this is actually not even their latest one, but they have a whole bunch of implementations of a bunch of different noise algorithms, all trying to run as fast as possible. They have all these benchmarks about how their noise algorithms are way faster than everybody else's. And so somebody took an old one from the JavaScript version and ported it into Dart.
I see.
And so here's an example of, again, I don't know if other people call this a noise plane, but I would call this a noise plane expressed in, projected onto 0 to 255 of, white and black.
It looks like a forest to me. Like there's some parts that look like they're popping up. It could be the trees, and the parts that are down low seem like the grass or something.
Yeah, again, I think it depends on what resolution, because anyways, and here's another one for different kinds of noise. So I think we start with
add this to our pub spec or whatever, and then
we add this to our pub spec, and we'll see what kind of trouble we can get up to. Pub spec dependencies. Oh, I actually really like doing this from the command line instead. Flutter pub add fast noise.
What is the advantage of doing it from the command line?
Best practices is to have these little dependency things.
I see.
But when you're typing it yourself, you do any. I actually filed a feature request that I think got closed, but the idea that maybe the editor should be slightly smarter for you, and that you can type. What did you say?
Yeah, it could autocomplete it or something.
Correct. Or you type, foo or whatever, and then it replaces foo with whatever the latest one is. All right, anyway, so we have fast noise. Let's see. Where is our cell generation?
I think it's in world.dart.
A lot of the easy baking this week was done by the Dr. Barth, so he actually knows the code better than I do.
Yeah, we ended up with these massive files, so I refactored them into somewhat smaller pieces.
Yeah, so I think...
So world is the thing that knows about, it holds all the chunks. And so chunk ID, what is the API for this thing?
World seed, right? And then generate chunk from the ID.
Yep.
So
we wanted to add this fast noise. Would we hold an instance of the noise generator on the world, maybe?
Yep. I think we have this is actually a totally fine set of pieces. So let's see. Let's look at what the fast noise. Because I think I have no idea if this is the right one, but I wonder what size this does. Oh, this is width and height. Is this random, or will if I call this with the same?
I would look at their docs. Maybe there's a way to pass in a seed.
So Perlin noise.
Yeah,
seed. There we go.
Yeah.
All right, and then are they using a function for this? We're doing noise 2D. I see. This is some sort of wrapper. All right, so let's see what. Let's see what this API looks like. So fast noise, noise TD. Okay, it does take a seed. Sure, great. We can try this.
So for an infinite world, I'm not sure what width and height are supposed to be. Maybe we should do this one chunk at a time to start with.
Well, there should be an offset in here somewhere.
Oh, I see. So you can say, I need this much from this location.
Correct. That's how I recall using this in Unity. Like, I would expect this.
There are a lot of arguments here. I can't tell if there's...
Yeah, it's really hard to... Oh, maybe if I click on this, it'll help me. Yeah, so I would expect to see an offset here.
Interesting. Can we look at the implementation? Oh, I see. It's very... Because one possibility is we could just instantiate the noise generator itself. Like, what if we look at the Perlin noise class? Seed. Octaves.
Again, I trust that the author of this knows, well, at least the original author of this knows way more about this stuff than I do.
What is like get Perlin 2? Yeah, so this will let you query it at any location. So I think we want to use the underlying object as it.
I wonder what the single Perlin is. Yeah. Right? This is the seed, and this is the offset within that seed, which makes sense. So we could definitely use this. I don't know if it's a good idea, but what's with the interp?
I think this is a method on this object, right?
Oh, yeah, okay. So we just make a Perlin noise thing. Yeah, let's just try that, right?
Okay.
So we do final noise equals Perlin. Oh, actually, we just do that, right? Perlin noise. We do noise equals Perlin noise. Do seed equals 8. Quite import. You have access to the I gave you access to the editor, right?
Yeah.
Fast noise. No idea if that's the right dependency. I think this is so much. Go ahead, sir.
We're going to have a nullability problem with the seed. So we just need to pass in like a default if it's null. They have 1 through 7 as their default.
Well, we could also just do this. Oh, I see. We can't depend on it. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. And then here, I guess we could just pass this into the chunk, right? Because the chunk is going to want to sample it. Like instead of random here, we should pass in noise, right?
Yep.
Okay. Does Perlin noise have a superclass, or they're
probably?
I guess we can be concrete about it. Like it feels like they should have an abstract.
No, it does not like it does.
Okay.
It's a little lame. We can make it Perlin noise for now, and we can always change it later. But some of this, it's funny actually. It set me off on doing my day job when I was reading about this specific Perlin noise class. Because if you go and you look at the GitHub of the individual who wrote this they've written several versions of this, and then they write it all in all these different languages, which is crazy. Like it should just be in C and compiled to WASM and then just available everywhere.
Okay, double X and Y. So we have, so it feels like we need to iterate over our for position in all positions, right? We need to query get Perlin at position x to double.
Yep.
We're going to have to figure out a scale here, but I guess we can start off with a scale of 1.
Yep.
And then I don't know what the.
And then we should just have, I don't know what the range of that is.
Yeah. Is it probably maybe between 0 and 1 is what I would guess. So maybe we would say.
So, but.
So maybe if value is greater than 0.5, then we'll add a wall at that location.
Yeah, like this flat port, which is wonderful. I'm super glad that someone did this because it's saving us a huge amount of time. But this flat port, I'm sure, could be way improved, made more darty.
Okay. I mean, I typed something in. Should we try to see what that does?
I wish I understood what the range was, but that's fine. We can also just print these out as we go. Yeah. Okay. All right. That's great. Let's see what it works. All right. Let's print out the noise values.
Okay. It's clearly not the right range. We can just do it in the debugger. Boink.
Okay. I see your debugging. Okay. Value. Whoa, it's a tiny value.
Super tiny.
I want to see more of them though.
Okay, so maybe logging is better.
Those are all tiny.
Well, it depends on what scale we're operating at, right? Like maybe we're just in a small, like what if we just multiplied our positions by 10?
Well, I think in fact it had a scale.
Oh, it had a scale?
This is frequency, interrupt, octaves. I remember what this. I remember this was a thing. This got explained in one of the
lacunary
gap pool. Gapness.
Gappiness. Okay.
Okay.
You know what I kind of want to do? I want to pick the color of the tile based on this. Like instead of thresholding it like this, just to sort of see it better.
Mm-hmm.
How could we do that?
We don't have cells. Cells are either passable or not. They don't. I mean, we could change that, right? Like we just change cell instead of having cell type. We just have a color.
Oh, okay.
Right. Final color.
Or just
right. Or do you want something else?
That's fine.
You can also put a value, right? A noise value or something.
Can you just give me a constructor that will let me just initialize these things?
Initialize what things?
The properties of a cell. Color from RARG.
You want cell this dot type. All it does right now. What other?
Oh, the color.
Do you want color or do you want just save the noise value? Like.
Oh, okay. I'll just save the noise value. Sure.
And we can. And then, like most of the code can just ignore that. And the question is, you may want cell.wall to go away. I see.
That's fine.
I
just made it empty. Yeah.
So value equals 0.
Yeah, you're gonna want to make it final. You can make one if it's final. Yep. And then in the draw function, we can then draw a different color based on the value.
Oh, I didn't make them take arguments. Do you want them to?
No, that's fine. I just got addicted to named arguments. There's
no, I hear you.
Reason for it. So then here, the color doesn't have to do the passability. The color is just going to be from ARGB. A is always going to be 255. Red is always going to be 0. Green is going to be 255 times the cell. Oops.
Oh, remember, they're super low scale. We'll have to scale them up, but yeah. I do wish it better explained what the scale was. Like it must be on scale.
So. Okay. What does that look like?
Whoops. Okay, what do I want?
I think you have to run it again. Must have quit it.
Huh. Wonder why.
So you're going to predict this is going to be pretty dark because the values are all pretty slow.
Yeah. I expect this to be super small.
This reminds me of when you're like bringing up a 3D graphics engine. You're trying to draw the first triangle, and you're just trying to find. Oh, the breakpoint is still there. I'll take the breakpoint out. You're trying to like find out like where is the screen, and you're just like is the screen a billion pixels?
Okay, there is variation, I think, but it's super subtle.
Should we take out the
green?
I'm gonna take out the foreground. The fog of war and stuff.
Fog of war, yeah. You just comment that out.
Yeah, just go about that for a moment.
Whoa!
What is a diagonal boundary?
That doesn't make any sense. Oh. I wonder if our scale is super zoomed out or zoomed in.
Yeah. So I'm gonna try just multiplying by like 10 here.
Well, I wonder what it
because remember our positions are like a single pixel, right? Inside this noise function.
Yeah.
We're each of our big blocks is 1 pixel. So I multiply by 10.
Octaves, frequency. Okay. What did you do? I'm sorry.
I just multiplied our x and y position by 10.
All right, there we go.
There we go. Okay, we were just like an ant, We're like, why is the world so unvarying? Everywhere I walk on, it's still dirt.
All right, so this is a lot better.
I kind of want to zoom out by another factor of 10 just to like get a little
better definitely. Sense of it.
I zoomed out by another factor of 10.
Whoa!
Oh, that was no good. Fail.
I have not drawn. We stopped. We lost our triangle.
Okay. I will zoom back in.
Are you sure? Was there something wrong in your zooming before?
Do we try something smaller, like maybe a factor of 2?
Well, I wonder if like I wonder if we're supposed to change this a different way. Like the other thing is like dealing.
I'm sure we're supposed to. I'm absolutely sure we're supposed to change it a different way. I'm just sort of experimenting with it.
Yeah. Well, like it talks about like in this thing it talks about octaves and frequency.
Mm-hmm.
Like I wonder if this algorithm is meant to generate a small texture, and the question is like how detailed the texture is.
Mm-hmm.
And so like us giving it like crazy offset coordinates is actually not what we want. I don't know what the defaults of the frequency and such are.
I think I agree. Let's try to tune it with the parameters of
the frequency is already. Frequency already gets multiplied by our, so we could just simply change the frequency we pass in. What is the default frequency?
Default is 0.1.
0.1.
0.1. 0.01, sorry.
So when we multiplied it by 10, we made it be 0.1.
Okay, so let's try doing it that way. So I took the multiplication out of the query, and let's try to add it to the constructor. All right, that's here, right? Frequency, I'm on line 278. So you can say frequency 0.1 should have the same effect.
278. trying to help everyone else catch up. Sure.
Okay. Okay. That seems totally sensible. Should we play with the octaves?
Sure, why not?
Okay.
I think we're octaves 3. We could try octaves 10 or something.
Octaves 10? All right. I'm going to dial a lot. Let's see what it does. That's octaves with an A. Okay.
Oh, interesting. That didn't change anything.
Okay, we're not smart enough to know what that does.
Huh.
Okay. What else? Can we try the Lacundity?
Sure. The lacunar.
Okay, I'll also make that 10.
I don't know.
See what that does.
The L word.
It's a lycanthrope. It's like a
fractal type, cellular return type. I just feel like I'm in a foreign land.
That's okay. We're mostly going to accept the defaults here, I think. That also
Why did that not change anything?
If we had any clue what it was, we might understand. Okay.
What happens if we turn the frequency up? Like make the frequency 1.
Okay.
Oh,
what's the frequency?
It failed before, didn't it? Yeah.
But I wonder if we're just like hitting an aliasing. Like make it 0.9. You're saying like if the frequency is 1 and we're querying every 1.
Whoa.
Yeah. So this is now like totally random, right? So when we just hit a perfect aliasing when we queried at a stride of 1, when the whole thing was at frequency 1, if that makes sense. So now because it's at 0.9, we're getting a very mostly like randomness, mostly totally random. That makes sense.
I'm not sure this makes sense to me yet, but I believe you.
Yeah.
0.8.
It's all going to look pretty random until you get below 0.5.
Okay.
Right, because the so like 0.1, we do 0.2, and move the little guy to make him redraw.
Yeah. Okay. It's not bad. I mean, if nothing else, this would be like a cool background. Like if all we did was like just simply change.
Well, but I think at this scale, so like at 0.2, we can go back to like let me put a threshold in the paint code just so you can see
what happens if we walk around from here.
It's all nice and continuous, so that's good.
Well, will it like eventually fail at a given offset?
I don't think so. I think it would. Why do you think it would fail at a given offset?
Well, it seemed to. I worried that it was before, but maybe that was. Okay, no, maybe not. Okay.
Try going up. Try going up. I think it'll be fine going up too. I'm just curious if that actually works.
I didn't hear you. I'm sorry.
Oh, just try walking up in the up direction, so the left and right direction. Yeah.
Yeah, looks like it's working.
So I think I want to zoom in by a factor of 2, and then make those things in like into walls. Should we try that? So zooming in by a factor of 2 means
0.4?
Reduce the frequency. Oh, yeah, 0.1. And then I want to add a threshold here of 0.5. It's like if
down.
Save this code for a second.
Oh, here, this thing.
Yeah, I'm going to say if value is greater than 0.5, do this.
This is a paint time change, not a.
It's a paint time change just for seeing. Okay. We can make it into the actual logical structure in a second.
So now everything is walls.
That wasn't quite the right threshold.
That's going to make... Oh, I see.
You can just walk around and cause the repaint. I see. Maybe we'll try point 1.
Remember, these values are super low. You actually want like 0.05 or something like that, possibly even lower.
It's really interesting. It doesn't make much of a difference.
Did you add another 0?
Maybe they're negative. Like what if it says greater than or equal to negative? What if I said less than 0? Like what is less than 0?
Can we just try printing the values so that we can just see a stream
print
of
the
them?
values for sure. Print.
Whoa.
Yeah, they're negative. So I think it's between. I think they're oscillating around 0.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe they go up to 0.5. Is there anything bigger than 0.5?
The biggest one I see. Maybe they do go.
That is bigger than 0.5.
I think they go up to 1.0. They just don't seem to ever get there.
Okay. So what does 0 look like if we?
Well, there's also this gain value that Perlin has, 0.5.
Oh, okay. Let's pass in a gain of 10 and see what that does.
Or a gain of 1, even to see what.
You want a gain of 1? 1.0?
Yeah.
Okay. Huh. I really was expecting that to make these numbers get
bigger.
A lot bigger.
Yeah, maybe I just don't know what the gain does.
But like this is a sensible like wall formation, right? Like you could wander around there.
All right, we need to turn this off.
Yeah, paint time happens a lot. You want that to be efficient. Like I think this is a pretty interesting cave, actually. Like I gotta go make these back into logical walls if you don't mind.
Sure. I know that's always passable.
It's always passable, but I'm gonna make them into real walls now. Like
Oh. Yeah, we basically now have a maze.
Right. So this.
I don't know that you can actually always solve the maze.
The value is less than 0. I'm gonna make it
impassable. I guess you can because you have the superpower of being able to pick up walls.
Yeah, that's a very important aspect of the game.
What are we doing here?
So
okay.
Get the right syntax here. Add.
This is kind of cool too because we could, with this value, we can also control the color, in addition to it being a wall. Although I think we should also just have different block types.
Yeah, we get different block types, but I'm curious whether this is like a
undefined name color.
We gotta comment that code back in. Actually, paint the walls.
Okay. And we happen to.
But this is way more interesting than our previous random walls for sure. You can you can totally dig your way into that little isolated pocket by moving the wall.
Whoa, that was weird. I like slowed down. Whoa. It's because I'm holding down the key repeat, and that seems to be like interrupting the animation and make it go slower. You kind of want something that destroys walls now.
Yeah, or like a backpack to put them in. But it just makes the game just totally different, right? Because the geometry of the world is so different.
You really need to be an ant now instead of a ladybug.
I mean, that's how hard can that be?
No, it's very easy. But the reason why being because like an ant would move stuff around. A ladybug, I don't think picks up. This like begs for an item that destroys walls.
Hold on, I'm trying to get the Unicode character for ant.
We might have even added it because I think I was thinking about adding ants as enemies. Man, oh yeah, okay. This is great. Really neat color though, by the way. I'm so glad that we added the ability to pick up walls.
Well, now it's super important. Like in previously, it was kind of pointless.
What'd you do? Change me to be an ant?
Yeah, so you're now an ant. Congratulations. I think you have to walk one. You don't have to reload. This is Flutter. You can just walk one.
I am an ant.
Oh, the rotation on the ant is totally wrong. The ladybug is oriented up. The ant, I think, is oriented across. So our rotation logic is totally wrong.
It's great though. I'm a falling ant. Are you fixing the ant rotation?
No.
Okay. Anyways, this is great. All right, so man, you totally. So this now feels a little bit more like Astroneer, which is a game that I played with my kid some months ago. You want like a drill bit.
Oh,
so in
so you just keep
Astroneer,
going.
you have a like a canister. You can make a canister, and then the canister allows you to hold dirt. Otherwise, your little dirt thing just destroys dirt. And once you can hold dirt, then you can place it back down. That'd be an interesting way to start, where the space bar just destroys the dirt.
If you have a little bit of space, right, you can put it right behind you and like tunnel your way in and block your way in, right?
Yeah, I was trying to
yeah.
I was trying to future proof for that later time when I really wanted to go back through the tunnel before I hot reloaded.
Although I will tell you a secret. The way the game is coded right now, you can put a block on top of another block, and that essentially destroys it. Right, because the walls are not real objects; they're just.
It will not do it.
It doesn't work. Okay, good. We fixed that.
The interact code I wrote must have.
It got too smart. But this is why I think a lot of, I guess there's a school of thought where you first design your game and then you implement it. But to me, because it's more like art, the medium is the message. So you find the tools like this noise function, and it just makes the game completely different than what it was before when we were using this other bad noise function. And then my ideas for what this game could be and how it could evolve are just totally different now.
It also, when I first started learning about games and how they were coded, because I've been at Google too long, it just boggled my mind how games didn't have unit tests or any tests for that matter. But now I've sort of understood more. And I remember this some from my time at Apple, where Apple had testing certainly for sure, but was much less into testing and much more into QA as a cultural thing. And games are just way into QA. QA and user testing. And it makes sense because there is so much of it that, as you describe, is art and the feel and the little bugs that you broke the thing. There was I was reading some little game thing, and they just this last week, this game that I played a decade ago called League of Legends, they discovered that there's a blue side and a red side. Mm-hmm. And that the blue side had this microscopic advantage that was added in Alpha 6 15 years ago.
It was a rounding error somewhere.
Their one of their units happens to have 0.1 range longer. And it mattered because it actually does change the game to have that range, but no one had figured it out in 15 years of the game happening until.
How did they decide? So they typed in the constants for the units twice for the red team and the blue team?
Oh yeah. So I've actually read a bunch about League of Legends because I think it's an interesting game genre. But looking at it from like a Googler eyes, from someone who's worked on platforms for their entire career, it's just like an anathema. Like, yes, everything is typed 11 times, hard coded constants, all
I mean,
in Lua.
we kind of went down that path a little bit, like we factored out the brain out of the enemy, right? And then the brain, I factored out like, okay, here are the numeric parameters for the brain. And I just made a constant array with like, okay, so I can imagine if I wanted to have like 10 different things, I would just add in just 10 different copies of that. It makes sense how you get there, right?
Well, they just mix the data and the code. That's just, and you see this also when you use tools like Unity, because again, it's more of an artistic tool, and you're just very inclined to just like, oh yeah, fine, I'll copy the entire model and like tweak these things, and not abstract out that like the animation time is this, or the like, I'll tweak that by hand with a little slider. No, it needs to be off in some constant separate JSON file. No, that's not how games roll.
I remember this when I was working with designers a lot, and they would give me like, okay, here's this screen, and here's that screen, and here's that screen. And my brain was like, okay, here are the things that are common. Like, oh, I see that you're putting things on an 8-pixel grid. And I'll come back and say, this one is 6 pixels. Can you explain why? And they're like, oh, it looked better. And I was like, oh, okay, but I need to like, because I'm building a platform that other people are building on top of, I don't get to see the final product. I have to figure out what the rule is that then makes it 6 instead of 8.
This was my very first job out of college. Well, okay. Sorry, not my first job. My second job out of college. Third job. Well, anyways, my
you had a lot of jobs.
I did. I was an intern, and then I converted to the same team at Apple, and then I moved to a second team. But the second team, I was a UI engineer, and my job was to take the red lines from the designers that often did not make full sense, like exactly in the way that you do, because it was a piece of art, it was a picture, and then like rationalize them with the human interface guidelines from Apple, right? About like, it really should be 25 pixels, even though they used 18 pixels here, and then hand it back to them and be like, okay, this is the rationalized one. This is the one that I coded. Be like, does this pass the test, right? Is this beautiful enough?
But the opposite of that is you get like, programmer designed UI, where everything is very systematic and it follows all the rules. And you look at it, you're like, this is like interface salad. Like, I can't figure out anything. Like, I should have clipped this a long time ago. But there was a picture of, it just looked like total incomprehensible like icon soup. Like, and then what it was like a music player. And once they told you it was a music player, like, oh, okay, that's the triangle. That must be play. But it was just like mixed in with all the rest of the things. Like, once you knew what it was, you could figure out. So I'm sure the person who made it all made sense to them. But like, if someone walking up to it just can't even parse it.
Yeah. No, I mean, having design and people who understand design and think about design is really important when you're trying to make something that's used by lots of people.
I sort of feel like that's where we are with this game. It's like, I feel like there's a like game design we're missing. Like, I feel like we have the tools, we have a really good structure here. We could build a lot of really good games, but I just don't have the design sense for like, what would be a fun game to make, or like, what would be cool to do with this? I just don't know.
Some of it's also story too, like, which I think are kind of separate roles. Like, there's both the game design and the like, not even just the setting, but like, what are you trying to accomplish in the game? But a separate what from the like,
the mechanics of it. The like, emotionally, what are you like? Are you discovering, or are you growing, or are you overcoming, or whatever it is? Like,
I think we could learn some of this, but we've made our unit tested, Perlin noise machine, and
I feel like the next step is like a storyboard step or something, where you like free yourself of the constraint of having to type a lot of things and just like draw a story about like, oh, here's how I want to feel in this part. And I don't really like, maybe that's a difference between the roguelike genre where everything is auto-generated and sort of other types of games where each like level is designed, or each like the story is more designed.
But these can be combined. So, and I think this happens actually in a bunch of roguelike. So, in a variety of ways. So first of all, you can still have feel and story and like emotion, and also have procedural generation. But also there's many games that use procedural generation, but their unit of generation is not evenly sized, for one, and it's not pixels. So like Hades, it was Game of the Year, by a whole bunch of awards 2 years ago. Procedural. It was a roguelike, like an action roguelike, and it had a whole bunch of things. But like the thing that changed was what rooms you went in, but the rooms were all pre-made.
Right.
But
so the sequencing was randomized in some way.
Mm-hmm. And also then like what item you got in the room. You always got like one item, one upgrade or whatever. There was another roguelike, the Slay the Spire, which was, I don't know, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. It's like a card, it mixed like deck building. Oh yeah, we have comments. Deck building and roguelike. And there again, it's like you have, beautiful cards, beautiful enemies. And it's a question of like which
What
order
order they come in. Yeah, we can totally add feature writing user defined levels. Like that's would actually be quite easy in our current architecture.
We don't have any save.
Well, I kind of had a dream of like integrating with Firebase, where like when you left a chunk, when it became inactive, we would write its current state back to Firebase. And I kind of wanted the idea that like you could just go visit, if you knew the chunk ID, you could go visit any chunk that anybody else had created in the world. I'm sure there's like social problems with this, but like the other thing is you recommended Scarab of Ra. So we were playing Scarab of Ra as another roguelike, and there was a very clear progression. So that the way I understand, yeah, it's like super ancient, right? But the unifying concept was you're exploring this pyramid. And so you start on this level that only has like a few squares, and as you progress through the levels, you basically go down the pyramid, and so each level gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And
does it?
Yeah, so the mazes get more complicated, right? Because they're occupying a larger and larger area, and so that's how they generate a feeling of progression.
Last time I played it, I was like 7, so that was a few years ago.
I'd never played it, so this was a new experience for me.
You experienced it as an adult.
Yeah,
I experienced it as a very young child.
But I looked at it from the lens of the problem that we were having with this game, which was like, how do you progress, or like how do you introduce a story or an emotional component to it? And there they had basically built around this pyramid concept. And that's why I think other games like Fez has this it's not a roguelike, it's very highly designed, but it has this concept of this like 2D 3D interaction where you rotate the world and then you interact with it from a different angle, but in 2D. And so like I'm sure those concepts are very difficult to come up with, or at least rare to come up with, to create such a unique, like fun experience out of it.
I maybe it's just I don't understand art because I haven't spent enough time. But there's this big art component that I see with games, and I don't see it as impossible. I just think to make good art, you have to spend a lot of time to like work those muscles, I think. And I don't mean necessarily spend a lot of time on the same thing, but like I think you have to produce a lot of bad art before you can produce good art. And we just
probably the thing
we
is
have a lot of muscles here.
Yeah, if we wanted to go down this path more, I'd probably just build like an imitation of some game that I like. I would just build Zelda: A Link to the Past because I played it when I was a kid or whatever.
Sure.
I would just build, Binding of Isaac because I really like Binding of Isaac, and then do that 10 times, and then generate taste and
yeah. So I think I don't know. Are we? Maybe we're reaching the end of this project.
I feel like I've like learned the technical aspect of doing an open world roguelike, which is what I was after, and I discovered this new problem of game design. And I think if maybe in a future episode we'll come back to game design, but I think we could just come back to it from a blank piece of paper and start with the storyboard, and then work from there.
I love that went on with this is that we sort of got to like this is our 8th attempt, at like building a game like thing in Flutter, and we got to like pull from our like previous lessons and use them.
I really wanted to incorporate the game of life at some point where like the terrain would then evolve according to the rules of the game of life, just so we can pull in that playlist too into this one. But that's part of what like people talk about, like so you notice on the show we start a lot of things, right? We don't finish a lot of things, and part of what you do in that is you explore a lot of different pieces, and then when you end up getting a thing that you really like and you want to finish, you end up drawing upon all that experience. Oh, it's super easy to make it a multiplayer game. Like the way again, I built a game. Not I think we may have showed it on the show, but I built this game, Hammer and Gluck, for Hanukkah for my wife's family, which is a multiplayer game built in Flutter, and I basically just used Firebase as a data store. And so all I would do in this turn-based thing is I would just upload the player's position to Firebase, and then have a listener that's listening for the other player's position, and then move their avatar. I think the tricky thing for us would be the turn-based nature of it. Like, would you want to take a turn and then wait for the other player to take a turn?
Mm-hmm.
And this is why I think a lot of multiplayer games, or at least massively multiplayer games, operate in real time, because if somebody walks away from their keyboard for a minute or two, you don't want to be stuck. Like in chess, it's not true, right? In chess, is a turn-based game, and you have a chess clock, and it's like part of the game that if you walk away from your keyboard, your clock is going to expire and you're going to lose, right? But so I think if I were to go multiplayer, I would probably go real time or semi-real time. At least make it possible, maybe for the enemies or the other players to move asynchronously from me, and maybe I would move turn by turn or something, or just go full real time. But yeah, just adding basically a cloud database and connecting up with that. We can do that on the show. We could do a cloud integration.
Yeah. I do think so. We do a lot of starting here. We do a lot of finishing or progressing in other parts of our lives. But I do think the starting muscle is important. And like part of my enjoyment of the show is that we do explore all these things that I just like. My job is to make Flutter 3 and Dart 2.17 amazing. And those are in their 8th year of existence or 10th year of existence.
And that's true. Like as a professional software engineer, you're mostly not starting things, because mostly projects that have economic value, probably take n people where n is greater than 10, right?
Yeah.
Which means 90% of the people didn't start it, right? And so I've actually encountered this. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I think you're about to say the same thing. Go ahead.
I've actually been surprised at this in my professional career, where when it comes time to start a thing, many of the people that I work with are excellent at iterating and improving a thing, but have never started a thing.
Yeah.
And like getting over the okay, we're going to type int main void now, and we're going to make a program that does nothing. It's like a novel thing for a lot of people. Whereas if you do the kind of stuff we do on the show, where we type Flutter create project or int main void every week, right? And so you kind of get used to the experience of it.
So I actually think I see multiple factors. I see this actually often even in people who are just coming out of school. And I think many aspects of school and curriculum inhibit this, because you always
do this in homework, right? They say, okay, you're going to, for your project, you're going to do X. Here's your scaffold project. You fill in the pieces that do the X, which is great. Like it's a way of like getting to the core part of what you're trying to learn, but you don't get the skill of like, okay, now here's an empty file. Like make it into a make file, compile your 1C file. Okay, now you have 5C files. Like how is your make file going to scale to that?
And so not only do you have people who often come out of school and college and whatnot, at least in the US, who haven't done a lot of starting. I mean, some have, and I don't wish to belittle that, but who haven't done a lot of starting or start from zero. Then they end up in often these large companies where, again, your job is not to start a new Google.com, right? Your job is to like polish the one aspect of the one subpage and make it amazing. And I think this muscle is important because I think it teaches me a lot. That again, you have to be comfortable with throwing away so much stuff, but I think it's an important muscle.
Yeah, hence the show. Finally, we explain why we're doing the show here in episode 98 or whatever it is.
Well, and maybe this will show up, but we were in the green room. We were debating whether we were going to do more roguelike tonight, or whether we were going to do like one of 8 different new ideas for other new projects we could start.
Somebody asked me like, how do you come up with ideas for your show? And I'm like, how do you like deal with all the ideas you have? It's like too many.
We have a giant doc where we write down all the ideas, and then we read through them every once in a while, like, oh, those are all bad ideas. But then you go through weeks like this where you have 8. So, anyways, wonderful to see you as always, Dr. Barth.
Good to see you. Thanks for coming, everyone, and we'll see you all next week with something completely different.
That is
To be fair,
9
it'll
times out
also
of 10
involve writing code.
true. Take care.